Good evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, September 9th, 2025 Commission for the City of Pittsburgh to order. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to invite Pastor Chambers to come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to remind us that we will be remembering the awful devastation event of terrorism on American soil here in a couple of days on September the 11th. I'm going to ask that we all take a moment of silence to remember the innocent people who were victims and for their families, and to the brave public servants who gave it all to save others and who never returned home to their families. The scars, pains, and sorrows are still with us all. May we pause for a moment of silence. Lord, we ask you to hear the prayers of our country for ongoing healing. May we be reunited as one nation. Father, we give thanks for the city of Pittsburgh and our elected and appointed leaders and workers. May they and we as citizens promote the best for the welfare for all to live in a safe environment by helping and caring for one another. May peace and harmony surround us all, and for this meeting this evening, continue to bless us and our city. We ask these things in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Well, we have a proclamation this meeting for Constitution Week. I'd like to invite Mary and whoever is with her to come forward. Thanks for being here. The last 2 years I've had the honor of being a judge for the Civics Fee that's sponsored through our chamber and the National Chamber. And there is a question and answer portion which the students have studied for, but watching the adult faces, we either forgot what we learned in school or we never learned it. So it's very fascinating and very gratifying. And I think we need an adult civics trivia contest at some point. So tonight, it's my honor to proclaim, whereas September 17th, 2025 marks the 238th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore I, Don McNay, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2025, as Constitution Week in Pittsburgh, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, and remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Would anyone like to say a few words? Or?
We appreciate this. We thank you very much. It's DAR's duty to present the Constitution to we go to 5 different schools. We do play a Constitution trivia game while we're there with the kids, and it is amazing how much they do know.
Yes.
So our Constitution's safe and sound these kids.
Good.
So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
right, moving into the consent agenda. Commissioners have opted not to pull anything off. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Stu, seconded by Ron. Roll call vote.
Brooks?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Monsell?
Yes.
Sigley?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Public input.
Public input.
Oh, yes, sorry. That was not Freudian. Public input. If you would like to come forward, now we will have public hearing for revenue rate and the budget. So this would be things other than that. Please state your name, your address, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jasmine Kyle. I live at 219 and a half North Broadway here in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And I'm here representing the SEK Humane Society today to propose a partnership between the city and the Southeast Kansas Humane Society, as our organization is currently facing a major financial strain, unfortunately. Over the past year, the shelter has cared for more than 250 animals. I want to highlight that the majority of those intakes do come directly from Pittsburgh residents and abandonments. Over 97% of our intakes have been from the city of Pittsburgh over the past 5 years. Simply put, if the SEK shelter closes at the end of this year, it's currently projected without intervention that these animals and the challenges that they bring won't disappear and will likely most fall on the city of Pittsburgh's Animal Control Department. Now, the SEKH, we're not a competitor with the city. The main purpose of our organization is to care for and rehabilitate the injured, sick, and abused animals of the city of Pittsburgh and, of course, Crawford County, and then facilitate their adoption into a forever home. Now, Animal Control enforces ordinances, handles immediate stray pickup, while our shelter provides placement, which is sometimes long-term, medical care, training, and adoptions that give animals a second chance. Now, even though our kennels are often full from resident intakes and abandonments, we try to partner with Animal Control as much as capacity allows due to the nature of their facility being a short-term placement, so that euthanasia for space does not have to occur. In this way, SEKH already reduces the city holding costs and medical expenses and ensures animals move into permanent homes. As shared in the packets previously provided to you, it costs SEKH around $30,000 per month to operate, which includes the following community benefits for Pittsburgh residents. This would include additional materials as well as microchipping clinics, free or low-cost vaccine clinics, public workshops, emergency sheltering support, and so much more of what we could do. Even a partial contribution from the city will help keep these services available, and it prevents Pittsburgh from having to build and operate its own full shelter at a far greater cost. If we shut down, the ripple effects will be immediate. There's an average of 2 additional animals every 3 days at Pittsburgh Animal Control that would need to handle. Stray dogs roaming neighborhoods means higher risks of bite cases, property damage, disease spread. Cats, which are even harder to catch, will quickly form colonies, multiplying if left unchecked. These roaming animals will remain in the public eye around parks, playgrounds, and neighborhoods, creating serious concerns for residents. Addressing these problems without our shelter will cost Pittsburgh more in staff time, resources, and public health intervention. Our goal is a shared funding model. We are not asking Pittsburgh to shoulder this alone. We will continue to apply for grants and fundraise, but at this point for sustainability, we need your help. We are asking for partnership. By working together, we can protect public health, continue to reduce costs for the city, and ensure that Pittsburgh families and their pets continue to have a safe, sustainable resource. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration this evening.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment.
Sure.
I want to thank you for all the work you do.
Thank
It's
you.
very much needed. We're all animal lovers, and, hopefully you can survive. But I would like to shine some light on our animal shelter.
Yeah, of course, Jack.
I got this information in the last 5 years. 2025, they took in 172 dogs.
So can I clarify, is this the Pittsburgh or the?
Pittsburgh
Okay,
Animal Shelter.
okay, all right.
2025, they took in 172 dogs, 0 dogs to SEK Humane Society as of yet. 73 SEK Animal Advocates, they were able to take the dogs that we took in. 87 of those dogs were returned to the owners, and 12 unfortunately destroyed. In 2024, they took in 336 dogs. 4 dogs went to Pittsburgh SEK Humane Society. 117 dogs to SEK Animal Advocates. 19 returned to owners, and 21 unfortunately were destroyed. 2023, the total dogs they took in were 353 dogs. 10 went to SEK Humane Society, 148 went to SEK Animal Advocates, 177 were returned back to the owners, 15 unfortunately got destroyed. In 2022, 351 dogs, 5 went to SEK Humane Society, 155 went to SEK Animal Advocates, 172 went back to the owners, and unfortunately 19 were destroyed.
Thank you for sharing that, and that is amazing, absolutely
Well,
amazing
I'm
data,
just
Chuck.
saying that as much as I appreciate your work, I had to shine some light on we have 2 employees at that Humane Society.
Fantastic
And they're
employees.
doing a good job, and I just wanted to acknowledge what they do, along with what you do.
No, thank you so much, Chuck. We really appreciate that. If we were able to intake more, if the residents from this area were not already over capacity with us, we would love to take more from animal control, and we're blessed that Animal Advocates is able to do so much. But it's not exactly an accurate or fair comparison to measure our KDA licensed shelter against a foster-based organization. We have certain protocols and highlights that we need to follow. KDA was at our doors today for a surprise inspection, which we passed, but it's incredibly tough. There's a lot of red tape that a KDA licensed animal shelter has to go through. But thank you so much for providing that highlights. I appreciate your time tonight, Chuck.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, guys. Brian Hanson, I have a rental house here and a commercial building. I'd like to talk about my commercial building this evening at 221 East 3rd. Over the last few years, that corner at 3rd and Elm has been a major problem of it deteriorates due to water that is constantly flowed from a neighboring business. Then it turns into the problem of the road. Since July, I've made a request on C-Click Fix once a month since July. And at this point, the problem has not been resolved or even looked at, basically. We do have the avenue of C-Click Fix. You're supposed to turn it in for potholes, problems of the street. We don't get a response back when that's going to be taken care of or even looked at. Still to this day, since back in July, there's nothing been done. I have all my C-Click Fixes, and plus today, there was actually a cone in there today for the very first time. I don't know if that was put in there by the city or if it was put in there by an individual. But the pothole is somewhere between 7 and 8 inches deep. And it's been neglected for months.
It's big. I saw it today.
Where do we stand with this, I guess, or what department needs to take control of this?
If you
Or
wanna-
how high does it go up,
Yeah.
or?
If you want to hang around during non-agenda items, we can have Matt come
Oh, okay.
forward. Yeah.
Okay, so you're aware of it at least?
I just happened to drive by
Yeah.
today.
You definitely
I've hit it
probably
several
are.
times, yeah.
Yeah. I have customers that complain about it daily to me, so I'm the one that usually sends the C-Click Fix rather than other people or whatever.
Well, I'd just like to say, Brian, that nothing's been done. Do we know, I know they come out and look at stuff, the
Don't
city
know.
does?
But they haven't contacted me to follow up with the C-Click Fix,
Well,
so.
and then sometimes they have to go to court. I don't know if that's the situation's going on
Oh,
now.
I mean, I don't know, but primarily, I've been there 20-plus years. They did acknowledge it and had a problem, or they fixed the problem with some concrete a number of years ago. And then that blacktop then just started deteriorating again, farther back. And the problem is not the rainwater. It is a business that flows water down the street daily. And then it goes around the corner to a storm drain, which I would assume in the codes enforcement, car washes don't put their water down our storm drains. They have drains that go into the,
So Matt
So-
is who you need to talk to, so you're welcome to hang out.
I've had that conversation a year or so ago with Matt, so
Okay,
I figure it's time to
We can
bring
ask,
it.
we can give him an opportunity at the
Yeah.
end of the
Okay.
meeting to.
Thank
Come
you.
forward. Thank you, Brian.
Hi, good evening. My name is Emilio Ida. I live 2207 South Homer.
And I just wanted to come and follow up again after I spoke at the last commission meeting, and just 3 things to follow up with the soccer fields and the kind of effort around that. First, I just want to say thank you. I went back, I have practiced on Tuesday nights, so I usually leave after I talk, and I went back and I watched the YouTube video, and I saw Toby spoke a little bit. You guys had some questions for him, and I feel like the commission and the Parks and Recs department, everybody's, they're taking our requests and what we think are needs for the community seriously, and so I appreciate that, and I think we all appreciate that. And obviously, there's other issues, and there's other things going on. You guys have a lot on your plate, so first thing, thank you. Second of all, just to kind of follow up with some of your questions, I think that Toby from Parks and Recs did a pretty good job. You guys had questions about kind of the footprint, the physical layout of what soccer fields take. And he was right when he compared it to about the size of a football field. And he talked about a full-size soccer field can accommodate, depending on age group, either 2 youth fields or 4 like young kid fields. But just to throw some like actual numbers into that, because I've done also some research myself, soccer fields, even like the FIFA sanctioned soccer fields, they don't have to be exactly like 125 by 60 yards. There is some wiggle room there, which comes into play actually strategy-wise too, but also just community-wise. Every community is a little bit different in how they tackle that. But generally speaking, if you want a soccer field, that's about 1.5 acres. 1.5 acres gives you enough room for 1 field with enough for like sideline, bleachers, lights, sidewalks, stuff like that. If you're looking at making a facility of say 4 fields, you would probably want something like a 10-acre site. The right 10-acre site would give you enough room for concession stands, bathrooms, parking lots, and 4 fields. 4 full-size fields, which again could accommodate 2 youth size or 4 like elementary primary age fields. You know, so again, not wanting to put the cart in front of the horse or anything, there's a long way to kind of build any kind of facilities or long-term, you know, bigger projects. But I appreciate your guys' effort in asking questions, so I wanted to follow up with some of that information. And then the third thing, which applies to the first 2 I said, but I meant to say it the last time I was here and I forgot, was I also, you know, as an educator and somebody who's been in administration myself, I believe in not recreating the wheel. I'm a USSF sanctioned referee. I also have a license in coaching from USSF. I've coached and refereed at a lot of different facilities around the Midwest and into the South. And people talk a lot about facilities in Kansas City and Wichita and bigger cities like that. I grew up in St. Louis. I don't think those are the right places to look at. I like to look at places like Chanute, Kansas, Independence, Kansas, Joplin, Missouri, and Miami, Oklahoma. All communities similar to ours in different ways, all who have similar kind of facilities to what we're talking about. And so those are just the places I would look. I have friends that work for those parks and recs and city departments and stuff. And so if there's anything I can do to help or we can help, again, you know, we always offer to help any way we can. So
Thank you very much.
yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tammy Galloway. My 7-year-old grandson was raped in Frontenac, Kansas on July 2nd. It has went from the police department to KBI, that $4.6 million building they're going to get because they want to help Southeast Kansas children. My grandson was penetrated by a 10-year-old child. KBI's conclusion after many days of begging them to do something, they've decided it's a you show me yours and I'll show you mine situation with these kids. KBI told me in the beginning, we're not going to charge him. We're not going to make charges. Do you know how hard it is to get charges to stick on a 10-year-old? What about my 7-year-old grandson? What about his twin brother that was molested at the same time? I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go, but it isn't fair that these kids, all three of them, have been dismissed. Because it's a hard case, it's an ugly case. It's a horrible case. And to have my 7-year-old grandson ask me, Grandma, why didn't he get in trouble? Beats me. I've looked up state statutes. You can try, or you don't put him in the juvenile system. They made a decision in 2 weeks after a very botched, whatever, case that they're just kids. That's what they do.
So Tammy, what are you asking of us? What do you need from us?
I need help,
Okay,
and I don't know from who.
where to go?
Have
I
you
was
talked-
told by a very wise person in this city to start at the bottom, go to the city council, and to start going.
But it was an event in Frontenac?
Did you say it happened in Frontenac?
It did happen in Frontenac, then it turned to KBI in Pittsburgh. DCF took 48 days to contact the suspect, then said, well, in the interview, he was evasive.
Have you talked to the Children's Advocacy Center? Because I mean, that would be,
They should have contacted me a long time ago. I did talk to him July 8th.
okay.
I have not heard from them since. The mother has not heard anything from them since.
And again,
DCF,
that
we
may
have
be-
not heard from.
Tammy, I don't know the whole situation, but the mother may be the primary person to contact, but I would refer you
I
back.
have a kinship paper.
Okay,
Are you-
Notarized.
Stu, are you recommending that she maybe go back to Children's Advocacy?
yes, I think that,
I think that would be a waste of my time. Is there anywhere else? They should have contacted us by now. They said they were gonna be behind us, they were gonna help those kids, they were gonna do all these things that they get this funding for. They don't have to deal with the city or the county. We haven't heard from them since.
Tammy, the Children's Advocacy Center has a board. I know board members. I'll talk to the board and I'll have them get a hold of you or the mother,
So,
probably the mother.
I mean, that's,
This should be an outrage. An outrage.
It is horrific, but again, it's not necessarily Pittsburgh.
I
City
think it's a
Commission.
community.
Yes, yes.
And Frontenac felt comfortable and was very positive about KBI getting this case because they had more resources. They're the state of Kansas, and the state of Kansas Attorney General told me that's the best we have.
Yeah.
That's the best we have. That scares me. And it should scare every one of you. If these were your grandkids, would you allow this to be dismissed?
so Stu, you're offering to get a hold of the
Yes,
board? Yeah.
yes.
So,
Okay.
thank you for coming
Thank
this
you.
evening.
She can get with you afterwards with your.
Yes, I'm sure they would.
Tammy, did you sign in on the back sheet? That might be helpful for Stu to contact you or someone to contact you. Okay, thank you. Anyone else related to public input? Not related to the budget or revenue neutral rate?
Right. I guess Roger Lomchek, I apologize, we'll just make this real quick.
Your
Couple of
address,
questions about
please?
what's
Your
that?
address, please?
Roger Lomchek, 1147 South 220th Street. About the SEK Humane Society requesting funding. I would speak in opposition to that. I think there are a few numbers that are interesting to look at. In the last 4 years of their funding, 2022, they got $266,000 in donations. 2023, they had $323,000 in donations. 2024, $94,000 in donations. Pretty significant drop. And in the first half of 2025, they got $18,000. Something's happening that clearly their normal donors do not want to continue supporting them and asking for tax money when it's very obvious that the the traditional donors are not interested in that. Maybe lets us know what the mood of the public is with that. Their total expenses. These numbers are from ProPublica, about nonprofit
have-
filings.
She gave us quite an extensive packet, so
Yep.
we do have all that information.
Their expenses in 2024 were $535,000 with a total of $148,000 in revenue, leaving a $387,000 deficit. That seems like a pretty insurmountable thing to expect the taxpayers to handle when we're already going to be talking, of course, about property tax increases now. So that's all I'll say about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Anyone else?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Isaac Hernandez. I live in 1915 South Tucker Terrace. I just wanted to give a different perspective related to the soccer pitch that Emilio was telling earlier. And I just want to give a little of context. I came to the U.S. 5 years ago as an international student, and since the first day, kind of saw like a very welcoming and supporting community. And thanks on that, I was able to be involved. I brought my wife and a son. And thanks to that, we've been able to be involved in different things. And we just founded last year something called Hispanic Music Festival, which in this edition, second year, is gathering together around 300 artists, not only from people that is coming to Pittsburgh to perform, but it also includes like local community members and Pitt State students, faculty, alumni, and of course people coming to Pittsburgh to perform. But the idea and why I say this is because soccer kind of works the same way. It's not necessarily the style of music we do, it's just the excuse to gather together, and it's pretty much the same for soccer. It's just the opportunity for the youth to have a space to actually do something different than just getting in troubles. And I say it as a father. I have a 12 years old son who likes and loves soccer, and sometimes it is very hard, or it was very hard, to find a nice and flat place to play. Right now we have the soccer pitch at Pitt State, and it's very useful and wonderful. But of course, if there's a game for the female soccer team, well, they have to use it, right? And I just wanted to give this analogy between the Hispanic Music Festival bringing together people together as a public soccer pitch would do for the community, especially now that, and probably that was said already, next year is the World Cup here in the U.S., especially being so close from Kansas City, and is expected to have visitors in the area, and we probably are aware of that. And also, on top of that is the 150 year
Sure.
for Pittsburgh. So just wanted to share a little different perspective for that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Question. I did a little look at, a soccer field can be 100 to 120 yards in length and 70 to 80 yards in width, according to the International Soccer Association.
Mm-hmm.
What would you need to meet your needs and also to provide tournaments if necessary?
Yeah, well, I think there was something that Emilio was telling, like in related to those measurements. But I think something that some of the groups, my son is in one youth club, they ask the town for the space, like provide a space that can be used to build a soccer pitch. Emilio was telling a little bit of the yards and all that. I personally don't know the specific measures and all that, but I know that it was said and it was spoken among the parents in these different groups that it would be nice that the city provides the space for the construction of that soccer pitch. And then, of course, sorry?
Oh, I was just gonna say, we know that, that you've had the opportunity, some of you, to meet with Toby, so I'm sure Toby is,
Yeah.
those
Mhm.
have been shared with Toby, so.
Okay.
So we know what we're looking for.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll close public inputs, and we've done consent agenda. We'll move into the public hearings. Item A, proposed 2026 revenue neutral rate. The City of Pittsburgh advertised for a public hearing to be held on September 9th, 2025 at the City Commission meeting, commencing at 5:30 PM in the City Commission room located in the Law Enforcement Center, 201 North Pine, for the purpose of hearing and answering questions related to exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the 2026 budget. Following the public hearing, approve or disapprove exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the 2026 budget, and if approved, adopt resolution number 1296. Jay, you want to educate us as to what this is?
I did want to give a little bit of background into the city's finances. The city has three primary revenue sources. We have property tax, sales tax, and utility revenues. Sales tax has been approved for specific purposes. It's been doing relatively well, but it does go up and down with the economy, the local economy. Utility revenues, of course, can only be used for utility purposes. It can only be used for things related to what generates that utility revenue. That leaves the property tax to fund the majority of our general services that we offer to the public and the things that we're responsible for. It's kind of the floor, the foundation of our financial condition, right? And the property taxes for us are dependent upon assessment values that are created by the county. So we do have to rely on what the county gives us to say what is our assessed valuation, and then we set our mill rates accordingly. In this year, we had a bit of a circumstance that we noticed when we were putting together the budget. In this particular slide, you'll see our 2025 mill rate, which is 50.854 mills. All right, it had an assessed valuation for this current year of $171,414,000. That made the revenue neutral rate that they provided us a certain level based on the assessed valuation that the county gave us. These numbers in brown, by the way, are they showing that brown? Yeah, they are. These numbers in brown are numbers that we got from the county. All right. The assessed valuation we got from the county for the 2026 budget, right, was $198,963,000. That really created, that was a bit higher than we thought, more than we anticipated, all right? So it got our attention. Now some other things got our attention as well. The issue we noticed right away was an increase in a calculation that, this, by the way, this is the sheet we get from the county clerks every year. This is what we base our property tax budgeting on, all right? You'll notice this category here called property with changed use, right? That was a $16 million number. Got our attention because last year that number was $245,000. All right, so that immediately got our attention.
So that indicates that there was that much increase in valuation.
Correct. That added a $16 million worth of valuation to the city. So, we started doing some research into that, all right, and we found that of that $16 million, what happened that created that $16 million in changed use? Well, what happened was our hospital got purchased, right, and part of that purchase process is for the new owner to process paperwork to the county to show that they're going to be a nonprofit organization, right, which it was in the past. Now, by the time the county was due to give us this information, they have a deadline, just like we do, all right? They have to provide us the information of the assessed value at a certain date, which is in June, right? And the hospital had not filed their paperwork yet to be a nonprofit organization. So their value appears as a valuation for the city. Now, we followed up a conversation with the hospital and with the county and found out that, yes, the hospital is indeed going to file their paperwork before the end of the year, by the time the reassessment happens, all right, and make sure that they're considered a nonprofit. So that amount from the hospital will actually dramatically reduce the amount of assessed value. So what it's going to look like is this $15,260,000 here is going to come off our assessed value. So when the original revenue neutral rate that was published of 43.834 came out, we as a city didn't feel comfortable putting our budget together with an assessed value of $198 million. All right, we went back through and recalculated what we thought would be our true property tax receipts based on a lower number, all right? So that number had to be reduced by about 15,260,000. That was about 3.641 mils that was due to the hospital and some other properties as well, including the Crawford County Mental Health. So what we actually have done here is recalculated the actual revenue neutral rate to be 47.475 mils, right? So I just wanted, before we have a conversation about a revenue neutral rate, it's important to understand that the revenue neutral rate is truly going to be 47.475. And we did confirm that 15,260,000 number with the county, that will, in all likelihood, not be a value that we can count on. Now, I do think it's important, though, to realize what does that revenue neutral rate number actually mean? What does that increase in our assessed value actually account for? And if you look at this sheet, there's a lot going on in this sheet, but the current mill rate, of course, is 8.54. With our actual revenue neutral rate of 47.475 leaves an actual mill rate increase of 3.379. Now, when you divide that up, right, as the county does, all right, between new and existing, all right, about 1.573 mils is due to brand new properties. We've been very fortunate in Pittsburgh. We have a great deal of growth in Pittsburgh. There's new properties on our property tax rolls. These are things that did not exist in our property tax records before, all right? That's roughly half of the entire increase. Right? The rest of the increase, about 1.805 mils, is for an increased valuation that the county provided. All right? And that's you can see the numbers here. All right? So for us as a city, as we're putting our budget together, all right, this is what it means. This is what it means to us. When we have growth, when we have new properties, we have to provide funding to maintain those properties. We have to provide services to those new properties. So we capture the growth. We capture the growth so we can sustain those new things that are being built in our community. Right? With the existing properties, all right, we account on those existing property valuation increases to pay for inflationary increases that we experience every year, just like every other organization. Right? Costs go up constantly. That's no secret to anybody. The existing properties valuation increase goes to pay for those cost increases that we're going to experience, and we know we will. Right? So it's important, I think, for us to think about those in those terms, right? That the real rate is going up 3.3 theoretically. We're not raising the mill rates at all. We're proposing no mill rate increase whatsoever. Right? And we want to capture the assessed valuation growth so we can pay for the new growth that we had and for the costs that we are experiencing every year. Yeah. Any questions about any of that?
So if you were going to ask what percentage, the 3.5, like what percentage?
Well, the actual change in the assessed valuation for existing properties was around 3.5%, right? And the 3.1% was a change that was due to the new properties.
So that the new and remodeled caused our existing property assessed valuation to go up, right?
A portion of it, yes.
So I think what I've been hearing is there's some issues, and it's not some of the new growth don't pay property tax, so, they're tax exempt. So that's an issue that people that live here, their property value goes up, but they're paying property tax when others are building new buildings and remodeling, and they don't pay property tax. That's an issue that I've had a lot of calls over.
Who doesn't pay property tax?
Hospital, the college.
Well, I realize the nonprofits, but anything other than a nonprofit?
In the case of, if there's an incentive involved, sometimes the incentive is to defer the increase in property tax revenue.
For a amount of time, a period of time,
That's correct.
Right.
not indefinite.
No, none of the incentives are indefinite.
You're talking about like an RHID.
No, if you issue an industrial revenue bond, there's a sliding scale, and Blake probably hasn't memorized, but I won't put him on the spot, where part of that, which you get with an IRB to build in a community, is you get a sales tax exemption on the construction materials, and then you can get a rebate up to 10 years based on the amount of the improvement. So that's the most common property tax abatement. And then obviously, you've got the housing property tax abatements, the CHIP program, the RHID, that also abate property taxes. And just as a policy statement, if you want new growth in your community, it's a competitive game. And it was made pretty clear to me when I first got here that we're not going to be writing checks up front for people to go out and say they're going to invest in something. So the natural thing is a TIF. A TIF can use both sales tax and property tax. CIDs usually focus on sales tax. We've done a number of those. And then property tax is obviously one that we like to use, but in Pittsburgh, the property tax abatements doesn't usually generate a lot of money because we're not Johnson County, we're Pittsburgh. So, but there's definitely a balance, and that's how they're mostly used, commissioners.
So the 43.834 mils that's on the paper here, that's an incorrect figure then, is what you're really saying?
No.
Well, you said 47.475.
The message you should take away is we have the responsibility of putting together a budget for you that you can go into effect in January 1st that has enough sales tax and property tax and of course utility taxes for the utility to provide the services that we want to provide. If we take the county's job is to give us the assessed valuation estimate that they gave us in the time that they gave us. And fortunately, they also have a column that says, this is some property where the use is changing. That's usually about $400,000 to $500,000, and this year it was 16 million. So when we asked the county, we went back to them and said, hey, what's going on? They supplied us with a list of projects from, the hospital was the big one, obviously. And Jay mentioned Crawford County Mental Health and a few others. They're like, these properties will, in all likelihood, not be on the tax roll January 1, 2026. You won't be able to use them in your budget. So we're not saying anything is right or wrong. We're saying for the budget that we put together, we had to remove the property tax, the valuation that isn't going to be here for us to use because we don't want to overestimate. I mean, I don't want to come back to you in June next year and say, well, we have to cut $800,000 out of the budget because none of those properties that we were expecting to be paying taxes are paying taxes. So Cheryl, I don't think anybody's wrong. It's just.
No, I'm just asking because 47.475 is.
A more accurate number.
Yes.
Well,
So
in
then when.
Resolution 1296, that's what she's
Yeah.
looking at is.
And when-
It says
whenever you-
43.834.
So if this is the resolution and it says that, then does the resolution need to reflect the 47.475?
No, because your resolution, you're asked today, and correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, you're asked today to consider a resolution exceeding the revenue neutral rate, whether it's, we are bound by law. I mean, 43.834 is the revenue neutral rate they gave
Okay,
us.
That's what they gave you. Yes, and then the 47, well, it's a difference of what you're asking to what the 43 is. That looks like 7 mil raise. So then when you come to this paper that here, you're only like, you said 3,
The
3.379.
biggest problem that
No, I just want to.
the biggest challenge we get across this state is that the county has to provide us an estimate 6 months to 7 months, in this case, almost 8 months before the budget is adopted. So they don't have, unfortunately for them, and they've admitted, they don't have an opportunity to come back later and say, oh, hey, in October, it's really this. That gets done through our budget process. And in order to have it done correctly, we're bringing this to your attention now so we can adopt a budget that reflects what we're going to have.
So the 3.379% only averages to $12,000.
12.
Or 12.
12
Oh,
million,
12
sorry.
million.
There's a zero
Sorry,
missing
okay.
from that.
Sorry,
Yeah, there's
I looked
a
at it
zero
wrong,
missing.
12 million. So when you're talking about taxpayer money, you know, nobody ever throws the taxpayer a bone. It's always raising, raising, raising. So sometimes if you, from what people are asking, it'd be nice to come back down here and give the people a break once at least in a lifetime. Because it's hard right now and a lot of people are having trouble paying things. And so I just, I'm just asking, and we still have a strong reserve for the city, so sometimes it's a give and take, and it seems like it's a take all the time. And I understand the growth and everything and capturing that, but sometimes it's nice to feel like somebody's doing something for the people too.
So we can certainly ask more questions after the hearing, but is everyone comfortable with me opening the public hearing? Okay. So I will open the public hearing. This is related to the revenue neutral rate. We will have a second related to the budget. So
These comments, they're not on 3-minute time.
no, but I would appreciate if you state your name and address.
Good evening, DJ Perry, 3111 Pinnacle Lane, Pittsburgh, Kansas. First of all, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, I appreciate the time. As we're in an election year, taxes have continuously been brought up. People are concerned about all the handouts, all the gimmies, the I needs, the projects that we're looking towards. I just want to make it apparent to everybody in the room, and I'm going to give the definition of the R&R, the revenue neutral rate, and a better understanding of why it's important, and then why it's important not to abuse it. It was put in place initially back in '21 because there were trends that were being allowed to happen. Legislatures got together and decided that it was not okay and it was something that we needed to address. So the revenue neutral rate in Kansas is a property tax limitation that ensures taxing jurisdictions do not exceed the same amount of property tax revenue for the upcoming budget year as they did in the previous year. So it's a base. And the term revenue neutral refers to the tax law changes. So the revenue collected by the government, in essence, a tax proposal is considered revenue neutral if it neither increases nor decreases the overall tax revenue when compared to existing laws and no prior changes. So with that, we're in a community window was their only option, and it's not. Like, there is absolutely other ways to do this. It just takes time, it takes effort. And I know Jay did a very good job of explaining where we're at with why it's at the number it is, but essentially we're very high, and it needs to be lowered. We need to go down. The people of this community need to understand why the city is spending the money where they are, and we need more information. And I guess part of what I'm getting asked, and a lot of the groups and the people that are coming to me with these concerns, they don't get to see all of it. I don't believe everybody in this room gets to see all of it. I don't think, as the mayor, you don't see all of this.
See all of what?
All the information pertaining to the budget and how it filters to deciding to raise the mill levy or lower it.
Well, actually, we do.
You have a group of it. You have a large number of it, but from what's available to the public, which should be the same information, I can't see it. I can't, get all of it at one place. And I've been referred to several times that I've met with Darren to answer some questions and look into things that are going on. And I like to ask questions, I like data, I like to see things on paper, and then have discussions afterwards. And I think that idealism is what the rest of Pittsburgh really wants. And I can't speak for everybody, but there's a large number of people here that they want to see more. They want to know more, and they want more of an open understanding of what's going on. So my recommendation and to you as a commission is to ensure that the mill levy doesn't go up. We pay attention to how much we're asking from
So let's be
everybody.
clear, the mill levy is not going up.
Correct.
So what you're recommending is that we don't
We stay at
we don't,
revenue neutral,
Okay.
and we don't abuse it.
Okay.
And that's essentially the purpose of why it exists. So on that side of it, that's essentially, with everything that's going on, again, I've had a ton of people ask me all these questions about what do we do to change it? How do we change it? And I think tonight, this is part of it. People come and they speak, and I think we need to see more of that.
What, to change what?
The concept of why the mill levy gets raised every so often or every other year,
Mill
and why it
levy-
needs to go down and be
It's been 7
neutral.
years since it's been.
Mill levy hasn't raised in 7 years.
yeah.
Right, but the proposal, the movement to it, to raise it, is on the
We're
table.
not raising the mill, I know it's a wonky system.
It
We're
is.
not raising the mill levy, we're we're just.
The assessed valuation goes
Yeah.
up.
And so.
That's
Right,
why
and
people pay
we're
more
working
tax.
with inflated assessments of property values, and I know that, we all know that. I mean, most of the houses have gone up $110,000 in value, and they've not been renovated or rebuilt. So there is gonna be a window where we're paying property tax on a property that's not valued where it currently is, or it'll go down, or it may level off, I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
I know.
go ahead, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, DJ.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Chanping Hu, and I'm the owner of 611 North Warner Street in Pittsburgh. I respectfully request a reduction in my property's 2025 appraised value from the current $77,800 to reflect my actual recent purchase price of $63,000. This is documented on market transaction supported by my official closing document and record deeds. This recent purchase price actually happened in May 6, 2025, roughly 4 months ago. It's 19% lower than the county's current appraised value. Kansas law requires property to be appraised at a fair market value. The price a willing buyer and the seller would agree upon under normal conditions. My purchase price is clear, variable evidence of such value. Adjusting to the approved value will ensure my property tax are calculated fairly and accurately. I have enclosed list document closing deeds, and the current value roughly $77,800 would result in roughly a proposed tax about $1,120. With the adjusted price according to the true purchase price, $63,000, the 2025 proposed tax would be roughly $910. There's a difference about $221. So I respectfully request that please adjust my 2025 approved value to $63,000 or a reasonable figure close to it, so that my property tax bill reflects the true market value of my home. Thank you for your time and consideration.
I think we need to be clear, it's.
Yeah, Doc, so there actually, if I'm hearing you right, there is a process for you to contest your valuation of your property with the county. And I'd be happy to help you figure out who the county that is, but if that's what you're asking,
Yeah.
I got doctor, and I think I got half your address, and I think I don't think you like what your property, what they're saying it's valued at based on what you paid for it.
Transaction value.
So, yeah, I do think, if that's what you're saying, I do think that process exists. I can't tell you.
It would be through the
I
county.
received a letter says, if you want to.
Yeah,
talk about
absolutely.
Your property tax, you come here at 5:30.
You did a good job, and I will help you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Should I leave my contact information on my phone number to you? This is
620 or 670?
670.
Okay, I won't read it out loud because we don't want you to get a bunch of crap.
078.
But I got you. 70. All right.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you very
thanks
much.
for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Martin Dupsloff, 2204 South Homer Street. I just wanted to say that I, for one, am tired of hearing there's no mill levy increase. Our taxes have gone up 25.26% in the last 5 years, which is just over 5% a year. And it's been 30% since 2018. That's as far back as I could find my records. And it's time to say no. Our taxes need to come down. Going up 5% a year, the people in this city cannot stand it any longer.
Thank you. Anyone else on the revenue neutral rate?
John Lair, Pittsburgh, Kansas. First of all, probably 12 to 15% of the population of Pittsburgh is over 65 years old. And, you know, we're giving all these deals to business and every place else. What about the poor 65-year-old just drawing Social Security only or whatever? It's time that we look this over and say, hey, what can we do? It's a want and a need situation. Everybody wants more, but what do you need and what do you want? And the whole thing is that as the commissioners, you need to look at this budget and look through it and see where the expense is. First of all, Darren comes up with a budget and gives to you, and it's not something we just want to continue to sign for. You need to look at it. You need to ask some questions. Everybody wants more. When they prepare a budget, you ask the department heads, they'll go to last year's budget, then they'll add anywhere from 10 to 25% on the budget. And I know that's a fact. And also, the same thing is, if they end up getting 5 to 10%, they're way ahead of the game. Valuation's way up, and your mill levy staying supposedly the same, but there's a lot of difference there, a lot of money you're gaining right there. And I think it's time we start taking care of the older generation here in Pittsburgh. This is no good. You know, we need a better negotiator if we're giving all this money out to businesses. What about the poor person that's 65 years old, paying all these taxes, continues to go up, they can't afford medicine, they can't afford groceries? You as a commission need to look at this very seriously. And I'll tell you what, it's time we do something. And I say that no raising the mill levy whatsoever. Fact of the matter is, you could drop 2 mills and still have more money than you actually need. Thank you.
Hey, John, just so we're consistent, could you share your address for Tammy?
1608 North Joplin.
Thank you. All right, anyone else on the revenue neutral rate?
Roger Lomchek, 1147 South 220th Street. I gave you all a handout a little bit earlier that has a couple of real-world examples. Rather than using the theoretical examples, I like trying to find real-world. So I had a couple of friends around the city in different areas with very different neighborhoods share their information with me. One's a $160,000 house near Lincoln Park. The other one's a $273,000 house in Woodgate. The Lincoln Park house, let me get to my numbers here. The two houses are going to pay roughly 6% more this year than they did last year. That's the actual increase in property tax if you vote to exceed the revenue neutral rate and go ahead and accept the full valuation increase. 6% more. We talk about a cup of coffee here, a cup of coffee there, and to try to make it sound like it's not as much. The problem is everything is cumulative, and we keep adding on just a little bit more, a little bit more. And as John mentioned, I think, or one of the other gentlemen, now we're looking at 20, 30% more than it was a couple of years ago in what people are having to pay. The mill levy has not changed, but the amount they're paying because the valuation has. And the whole intent of the revenue neutral law is to give everyone a clear line of sight to what their mill levy would be if we maintained revenue at the same rate as the previous year. And of course, you could choose to split the difference, pick something in between to account for a little bit of inflationary changes, but not necessarily the entire increase. In the case of the Woodgate house, they're going to pay an extra $352.54 this year. That's across all the taxing entities, but the city of Pittsburgh is a part of that. The Lincoln Park house, they're paying $174 extra this year because everybody has voted to raise their taxes. And I know we've talked about it not being the mill levy, that's true, but the vote is, are we going to raise their actual taxes and make them pay more money? As I think, John had said, people on a fixed income don't have the luxury of just getting a raise. I wish my boss would give me a 6% raise every year. That hasn't happened. Social Security's cost of living allowance is 2.7% this year, or will be for 26. A far cry below the 6% that we're looking at here. And again, these are the numbers on that sheet I gave you are real world examples of actual houses here in town, not any theoretical numbers. From the city, from what I could gather from city information, just kind of off the cuff, the numbers are estimates, so they may be off a little bit. The general and utility funds combined are looking at 11.6 million in total reserves, which is about double actually it's a little bit more than double what the expected or the ideal minimum is. Beyond the reserve goal, the city has, according to those numbers, about 6.6 million extra in the bank. That's above and beyond the normal minimum reserves. The city's projected increased income from the property tax increase is going to be about 700,000. A lot of those numbers are kind of rough estimates. With the hospital situation, it makes it pretty hard to do that on the fly, but I tried to be as accurate as I could. But the best I could judge, and if you guys have better numbers, I'd be more than happy, but 6, 7, 8.
You're doing great. I mean,
Something like
keep
that.
going. I mean,
Roger,
you're making your point, and that's what we want to hear.
Real
Yes, sir.
quick question.
Yeah.
On the 6% on the Lincoln Park
Yep.
house, is that 6% total, so it'd be 2% for the city, 2 for the county, 2 for?
No, it is a 6%. It's simply a 6% increase in the amount of tax they will pay.
But that would be across all 3 entities, right?
No, but yeah, that's, each one is roughly a 6% increase. Actually, the school is 8%. The city's about, I think in their case, it was 5.8%, and then whatever the others were, because you're subdividing out the dollar amounts as well.
I was just
The
curious.
percentages float about the same.
I was just curious if you're talking 6%.
Yeah,
As it relates to the
it's-
city of Pittsburgh, or?
On an average, it's about 6% for everybody
Okay.
that they're getting for that house. The Woodgate house was a little bit higher, it was like 6.2% for the city.
But again, that would be 2% across. city,
No, it's
county.
the total amount, if we look at how much extra the city is, and here, I'll give you the numbers. In the case of the Lincoln Park house, they're paying an extra $50.29 from the city, which is out of $937. So that's pretty close to 5%.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anyway, so my question is that the city's total take on this ballpark is gonna be something under $1 million. The excess cash reserves that the city has on hand are looking like something about $6.6 million above and beyond the reserve limit. So a significant amount, almost double or more than what the city's reserve limit is. I realize there are expenditures that are planned with that, but that's a pretty significant reserve that we could potentially tap. A question I have on that is how much of the current planned budget includes additional money going into reserves?
So, you're looking at the general fund reserves, I don't know where you got your number.
General and utility
You're
combined.
you're in the ballpark.
Yeah,
The general fund is the general fund, and then it's probably 7 other funds.
sure.
Every one of those funds, and somebody referenced it, I don't know if it was early in the presentation, we have a number of sales taxes which are earmarked for specific
Sure,
services.
they all have
because
different,
The property
have
tax.
to be used for certain things. I understand
So the
that.
street sales tax is in that number. It can only be used for streets.
Yep.
I can't use, the economic development sales tax has a little more flexibility. The library has a balance. Our health savings account is in there, and this is the first year in probably 7 years that, because of 2 big claims, we're actually in the red in that fund. So we did the same thing you did, basically, and Jay's got a couple of graphs. The utility, it's pretty easy to explain. The commission on purpose ramped up the utility reserve because we have a $61 million
Sure, got the
plant that we're
wastewater
building.
coming, yep.
And one thing that we did, which I think we'll get into later, caused a lot of issues at the end, was the last week of the budget, when we submitted our budget, we had a 16% utility rate increase programmed for next year.
Yep.
But because the reserve has enough money in it, and we did the debt service with the final amount, we finally bid the project, found out it was gonna be 61 million, not 35, that it was gonna be
3 years ago,
pre-pandemic
4
when we
years
were gonna do
ago,
it.
yeah.
So the commission is gonna pay, they're socking that money away is gonna pay off, because now we can spend down that reserve over the next 3 years of the build-out, rather than jacking up rates 16%. So we are listening to you, and that's why I was like, your numbers are basically right. One of the things we do that hasn't been discussed at all, and I think it, to DJ's point, the city, I don't, maybe it was Mr. Lair, I don't know, somebody came in and said the city manager just flops his budget down and we whip it up by 8% or whatever. The commission in May sits down and we take them through every single fund in the city. We call it a working day. We project for 5 years out and 7 years back, every fund, how it's performed. We put in a trend line. We give this a considerable amount of thought. I'm not going to defend, I got a house and way more cars than I need, you know, I got kids, they need cars. I'm paying my share. But I completely get what you're saying, but I can tell you this, the reserves are something we take very serious. We have a graph. We know what our minimum is, 16%. It's 2 years of expenses for both of those funds. And we manage that. When I got here, we went through the 2008 crash.
Yep.
I got here in 12. In 12, there was $1 million in the bank.
No, I
There was
remember.
a $40 million budget.
You and Jay have done a good job
Well,
about building up those reserves.
well, thanks,
for sure.
but my point is, I'm pretty cheap. I focus on the employees, because they're 40% of our cost, and that's a lot for an organization. Usually that's about, 28 to 34 is where you want to land. But we are an employee-based organization. We have employees, we give them stuff, and they go do stuff. So everything you're saying is accurate, but when it comes to reserves, we do look at it, because what we don't want to do is take your tax money out of your pocket and stick it in our bank. Even though it's eventually going to come around to services for you, what if you move next year, and I've banked it for 3 years, you don't get the benefit. So we run that by this commission every year.
Sure, of course.
And we present it to this council in public every year. So just to be clear, I know you may not like the results, and I don't like the high property taxes either. I don't like any of them, but until we can find a way to get rid of them, we are challenged to keep it flat, and we are not just banking money for bank's sake. All that money is
I
put in there
understand
for a
there's
reason.
plans for it.
When stuff happens,
absolutely.
in the
Yeah.
bell curve, Margie is our finance director on contract to help with it the last year, and she said it real well. I showed her the charts, and I was like, what do you think of these charts? She goes, you ramp up your reserve, and then you spend it down, which is what we did the last couple of years, and now it's going to start ramping up again. But we are critically aware that it's your money, and we want it to stay in your pocket. But we also are aware that we have to operate this place, and there are services that people want, and we expand in parks, and we've done whatever we can. But your points are really well taken, and I just wanted you to know. Usually I kind of look at you and just let you do your thing, but I know where your address is.
I appreciate your input.
But I saw you last night at the
Yep.
school board, and I think people were making good points, and Mr. Lair was there, and I think it's important that we have these conversations.
Yeah, and it's something that a critical thing, it's something I mentioned yesterday to the school board, is that we're seeing people I know are leaving the area. They're moving, and they go to Carl Junction. They go to Oklahoma, maybe by Tulsa or something. Their property taxes are half of what they are here.
And I know a lot of people that move in, and they thank goodness it's here, and it's a cheap cost of living. There's always somebody, Roger.
All relative, but
We're
it's
working
something
for
to
We're
consider.
working for the greater good, I can promise you that.
I
And
don't dispute that. I would just ask that there be some additional effort to sharpen the pencil and reduce this to help people want to stay in the area. We've got a beautiful town, beautiful area, and we need to keep it affordable so that people can afford to stay here and live here.
One
Whether
of
that's
the
retired
things that
people.
comes to mind was, we're supposed to be, and we probably are, one of the poorest counties in the state. I keep hearing people say this. You have to remember, because of that, we have a lot of nonprofits in the city of Pittsburgh that don't pay taxes. They own a lot of property here and there and everywhere.
Sure.
They don't pay any taxes. So when you look at the whole sketch of things, that one of the reasons that the property taxes are higher is because the taxpayers are supporting these institutions.
Yep, that's
So-
exactly right. And that's a good point that I know we have any number of nonprofits that they're purchasing land from the land bank, building houses, but they're not going on the commercial market. They're
Exactly.
not being returned to the tax rolls.
Exactly.
And that means the rest of the people are having to cover the taxes of that property that the nonprofit purchased for a pseudo-commercial purpose. They're renting out houses, selling houses. And so it's a concern.
Which property tax will be on those? I mean, if a nonprofit is building a house to sell to an individual, property tax. will
Once
be
it's
paid.
sold.
Once
Right.
sold, but if they're keeping it for a rental, obviously it's not gonna be on
Brings up
hand.
another point, that over 50% of the houses in Pittsburgh are rentals.
Yeah, no, and that's a very serious thing. Those, if they're owned by a for-profit corporation, they're paying their taxes higher than they would if it was owned by an individual. But in the case if it's a nonprofit conglomerate that's owning a stack of houses, those are off the rolls completely.
Any final thoughts, Roger?
Yeah, last couple of things, I'll wrap this up for you, thank you. I had done some math beforehand on what that would equate to. I'd come out to 47.354, the actual mill rate to be revenue neutral. I think Jay's probably a lot better at that than his. I would certainly defer to his number 47.8 something or 5.8?
47,475.
It's right there.
Yeah, anyway, that would be my request, would be that you amend proposal 12, or amend resolution 1296, or offer a counter amendment to go to whatever the revenue neutral rate is that you accept, whether that's 47.4, 0.3, 48, take your pick, and accept that the city has to figure out a way to tighten its belt a little bit more, just like all of the citizens have to do all of the time when we're paying for increased expenses. And I know that's not the thing, you guys are working your tails off trying to figure out ways to make it work. But it's something that we have to have some buy-in from the taxing entities, just like the people themselves have to do. Nobody's given us a 6% or a 10% raise. And there has to be some kind of help here.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on revenue neutral rate?
My name is Carol Hammerbacker, and I live at Hillcrest Village. And I would just like to speak to you because I know this is really difficult for everybody. This is difficult times, but you know, our country has a huge deficit. And it's milking right down to us. And every one of us are going through lots of things that we don't want to have to go through. And I'm talking about economically. I'm not talking about all the other things we're dealing with. But this community is a special community. But in order to keep it special, we have to look at what the citizens are saying. So if we can really be shrewd and think about what we can do to give the best we can to our people, let's see if we can't reduce what we're spending, so that we can say we're not paying more taxes than other cities. And so that's just all I want to say, and I thank all of you for your time because I know it's a big job. But think about what we're asking, okay?
Thank you, Carol. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public.
We got one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Chiming in at the last minute here. My name's Isaiah Harris. I'm at 411 East Adams. I'll keep it short and sweet. This is running a bit. So I've been renting almost all of my life. I'm 26, and fortunately my wife and I were able to buy a house pretty recently, just about a year ago. And so I've seen firsthand, you know, what it's like to experience rate hikes in your rent. And to that end, we ended up homeless when me and my sister were children, just raised by my single mom. So just highlighting how much property valuations increasing affects not only homeowners but renters as well. And so I just wanted to put the question to you guys very directly. What steps or considerations are you as the commissioners taking to ensure that these truly incredible developments that are coming to Pittsburgh are not disproportionately impacting the, let's say, less privileged in Pittsburgh right now?
Well, one of the things that these developments are going to do, hopefully, is we'll have enough employees to buy homes, which will increase the assessment, increase the tax, and perhaps we can lower the tax at some point. We'll have enough. But right now, and going back to May when we went through the budget and looked at all the numbers, and we do scrutinize the numbers very closely. I mean, there are some people who grew up here on this thing not well, for. And we look at those numbers very carefully, and if there was a cut to be made, we advise the cut to be made. So when Darren says that, we go through it, we really do. We look at it, we all look at it. And, Chuck especially, he's very scrutinizer. He's a penny pincher is what it comes down to. If he can see a penny to be pinched, he'll pinch it, or recommend it to be pinched. But by bringing all these other things in, you're going to hopefully have wages that are going to go up to some point, at some point, because there's going to be competition for labor. And at that point, that's going to impact the community, and people will buy homes, we hope, or remodel homes, and we'll see taxes increase, and hopefully we'll always be able to remain at revenue neutral. But that may not happen down the line somewhere. We just don't know.
I find it difficult to take that in the abstract, and I don't mean any disrespect by pushing back on that, but I'm sure all of us have seen firsthand how that has not played out in a lot of ways, how wages have stagnated. And I've seen some numbers that show that wages are increasing around here on average, but that's really difficult to just kind of put that trust in that hopefully things are going to be better because of these developments, especially on the point that we increase our developments, which will increase property values, which increases taxes. That is also scary, right? Because we're experiencing a lot of housing crisis effects in Pittsburgh as well. I mean, it's really difficult to get into the homeownership at all, and into the market. And so just on that note, the other question that I really wanted to ask is that it really seems that we're just completely on the hook of appraisals from the county. And is that the case, or is there anything that the city can do to try to push back against that?
So we are part of I say we, I mean, I think Jay stood in there last time and he didn't fall asleep. So I'm on the league's governing body, so they have a group of people that are looking at property tax, because every year they go to the legislature and they lobby on behalf of cities, and the legislature is, tax lids. The revenue neutral rate was an idea. I mean, they're always doing things to deal with it. So the idea is, well, let's just don't go in there and fight with whatever ideas. Let's literally, I mean, there's nobody on that body, and it's, Topeka, Wichita, Lenexa, clear down to all the small towns out west. What can we do with property taxes? The things that have the most traction, usually it ends up into an argument about, well, you can't cut it because it supports a service. Yeah. Because obviously you're asking cities who support services for a living, they're like, we need money to do it. It really comes down to a couple of concepts. The biggest one is a rolling average. Is there any way to just say, because it is a value, we know the formula. Everybody in here knows it's the mill rate times the valuation, and that's how you get to the number, and then you pay the taxes on that. So the city not being in control of the valuation puts us behind the 8 ball to some extent, but we'd also know the county has a job to do. So the city's like, well, what if we could talk to counties or the state into allowing us to take a 3-year average? So if the valuation goes up 6% one year, and it was only 2, and then one year we held it to 0. What if it was 1.5 or 3? I mean, that's something that you can do after the fact if you can't just take over the valuation process. The other thing is exemptions. Obviously, there's people that think if you're over 65 and you're paid for your house, what's the point? How many times do you need to pay for your house? That's got some legs. Nothing the city of Pittsburgh is going to be able to do about it, but if the legislature sees it, maybe it's an idea that we can help the governing body the league give them. So that's a concept. There's a tremendous amount of pressure at the state. The state cut their 1.5 mills last year in the legislature, and they were happy to, quickly to applaud themselves and say, now it's a city problem. Right. Well, there's 20 mills of property tax at the state level that funds education. But there's nothing that says that the state has to use those 20 mills to fund education. They could fund it from somewhere else in the budget. And what they have done is they've increased the exemption when they decrease the amount of mills. Instead of the first 20,000 of property being exempted, it's now 75. So things happen, but luckily I chose local government because it was the only government I thought really made sense. Yeah. And so the burden is on us on nights like this to deal with what is happening. But I do think there's people out there that understand that there are expenses at the city where people live that need to be funded. And the sales tax, we're limited to 2%. And luckily in Pittsburgh, as high as everybody thinks our taxes are, we only use 1.5 cents of that. We have a whole half cent that we've never allocated to anything. That's for an emergency. It's like our reserve. If we get a major storm, we have to replace some major things, buildings, we're going to be able to issue that money and do something with it. So we're keeping that. But the property tax, and I know Roger said 5 or 6. Jay gave a pretty thorough presentation that's been picked apart by a pretty mean accountant right there that keeps us in line that said it looks like it's between 3 and 3.5% on the assessed valuation. And that's what we've been telling the commission. So if it's 6% and we've misled them, then I don't know how it could be, but that's where we're at. And inflation, as Roger said, is 2.7, 2.8%. That's really when we wake up and look at it and we think, okay, what's going on? I've got 300 employees, and I'm proud of my career, and I'm proud of what this community pays me and my executive team. But almost all of those employees make a very small amount, and that's the group. When I got here, we gave them a 0, we gave them a 1, and then a 0 and a 1 every other year until we finally had some assessed valuation growth. And I'm proud to say in the last 5 years, those employees have averaged 3.5% increase.
Great.
And because there's more places to eat in this town. When I got here, it was which chicken do you like? And no offense on chicken, but I'm like, I think we got a bigger story than which chicken do you like?
Yeah.
It ought to be okay for you to go to work and 1 or 2 nights a week, go out to eat somewhere that's actually a few options and to have a wage that allows you to do that. The problem is, it is so expensive right now to live in this country
Yep.
that it's insurmountable. I mean, I don't think you can buy a bag of groceries for less than $100.
Yeah, and that's kind
And
of
that
what I'm
does
getting
hurt.
at by coming up here and putting this to you guys is I know just how disproportionately it is felt on lower income individuals, any sort of raise, whether we're talking about sales tax or property tax, because of course that's going to influence rent as well. So as it was alluded to, it's about 50-55% or so of Pittsburgh is rental homes, right? And so are there, and I'll give you one more question, then I'll step down. Are there programs at the city that can consider from a policy perspective that can freeze property tax rates as they are for cost burden homes, for example? People spending over 30% of their income on their mortgage. Is there anything like that we can do to at least provide, as DJ and John Lair and Roger Lomchek
Where
and
does that,
everyone
where
else
does
here?
that frozen money come from, Isaiah? Where do you make up the difference? If you freeze the revenue for some, then what happens?
You raise it on others. And I know you're gonna put a target.
That's what I
on
thought.
that. No. And I completely understand how that sounds. Trust me. I know I sound incredibly unfair when I say that, and I totally get that.
Isaiah, you just defined the property tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? Think about this. I don't have a dime, and I live on the edge of town, and my house is falling over, and I've got a gravel road. Or I live right by the university, I have a very big house, I've got a concrete road, because that's what I can pay for with my taxes. The property tax takes the taxes, somebody with more pays more, and it redistributes them. So every road that we put in, regardless if you're driving a Cadillac on it or pushing I wouldn't say a wagon because I think we may have outlawed that, but pushing a bike, it redistributes it so we can build the roads that serve everybody. It is a redistribution of the income in this community.
Yeah.
I realize it's very hard. I don't think it's easy on the rich people right now or the people with money.
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound
But it does
insensitive
redistribute the
Right.
wealth in this community onto a way that the city can just in neutrality put out one road that serves everybody.
Yeah.
A clean water facility you don't have to drink bad water if you live on the edge of town. You're going to drink the same quality water as everybody else. So in essence, that's what it does. That's why it came about. The problem is for everybody right now, the cost of living is so high that those dollars are scarce for those families. And I think that's what we can all agree on.
Yeah, and so my reaction to that is that's really tough to hear, that it just like sucks if you don't have enough and that's too bad.
It does.
And you see what I'm getting at. And I'm not trying to say the rich people need to pay way more than I do because I have less money. It's not like that. I understand how that sounds. You shouldn't be punished for being successful. I get that. But these raises are always going to be disproportionately felt by those that are just barely paying their mortgage. And you see a $200 increase in your property tax based on property evaluations, and what's left? Then you get to a situation where you have to consider moving. Or you get to a consideration where it's just,
So
please.
Isaiah, your recommendation is that we don't exceed the revenue neutral rate? Is that what you're
I'm
saying
not,
to us?
I don't want to make a specific recommendation. You
Okay.
guys have scrutinized the numbers more than I do. I just wonder if there's anything that we can do for the people that are right on that precipice of making an impossible choice right
What
now.
would you suggest other than taxing the
Rich,
the rich?
so to speak.
Or exempting the poor, I mean,
Yeah.
which is, I guess, the same thing.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
What I can tell you is
This is
people are
for
looking
the
at
revenue.
it. The state is looking
Yeah.
at it, and they're looking at it for once in September instead of March. And the people that are looking at it are the people that are really the ones that need to figure out a way to do it because they're providing the services. I mean, it's easy, to blame the legislature. They're just trying to do what they're being told also.
Yeah.
But it's being looked at, but I think if there was an easy solution, we would have already been doing it because we're trying to make it easy to live here. But I think we need to keep in mind, life is expensive. I mean, it's ridiculously expensive right now. Something is wrong. But we can't think we're gonna figure it out by ourselves. So I think everybody needs to keep talking to one another, and the commission, in essence, can do whatever the five of them, or three of them agree to do, is the short answer to your question, but they still have to fund the services and the programs that it takes to run the city, or they're not gonna be very popular either.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Isaiah.
you.
John, I have a question, since you're talking about being on.
Just one second. Anyone else? And we'll close the public hearing. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the
Yes, sir.
public.
Somebody asked me that they had heard that at the state level, the governor, whoever sets this, said there are counties in Kansas where their assessed valuation was too low. And the governor wanted them to increase the assessed valuation for those counties. Is that correct or incorrect?
I've never heard that.
Go ahead.
You want some input on that?
Sure.
I spent a couple hours talking to the appraiser last week to learn a little background on this. The state statutes require that counties stay between 92 and 110 or 108% of what's deemed the fair market value of like properties. And so I think probably, Chuck, that's what they were referring to. Not that the governor's issuing some kind of edict from on high, but that the statutes right now are requiring appraisers to maintain that, and it's a constant rolling basis. Anytime a property sells in the neighborhood, bam, anything around there, similar square footage, similar design, goes up. And so you just create this ripple effect that bounces from area to area that causes that. And he mentioned Silverback as one when the previous developer had raised prices on the houses and a few of them sold. That caused an immediate whiplash that just bounced through the entire city and brought all of our property taxes up significantly higher simply because of that. And
Yeah, I don't think we can make that correlation.
well, no, I mean, that
Silverback
was straight from the appraiser.
and the county appraiser?
Yes, he
Oh.
saw it happen real time.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
still don't think we can. All right, so, commission, any discussion, having heard all the input?
Do we have any wiggle room on the revenue neutral rate compared to the 50.854?
Darren or Jay?
Well, two things. Sometimes it's good to go last. The county and the school district both dealt with this already. They exceeded the revenue neutral rate and left their mill rate at the same. The city has a budget that is the same service level with a few increases from last year. I think the 3.5% keeps us up with the cost of living. I think it's the increase in the general fund is about 3% higher than it was this year, which is consistent with, it seems to be that 3%. I have to think, I mean, I have 300 employees, and I told one of you, if not all three of you, I wouldn't put it on the table, but there's 300 employees, and some of them are married, so there's probably 260 families. I don't know how many of them are married to one another, but those are working families in Pittsburgh, and there's a 3% raise in this budget. Our 5-year forecast recommended a less of a raise, but it's just so expensive right now that I think we have to do it. So I put together the best budget we could, and I'll defer to Jay because he's finance director, and you can yell at him.
Yeah, only temporarily. A couple of points, though, regarding that. When we always take the long view of our financial situation, and we've been able to, over the years, maintain what we refer to as a structural balance in the budget. So we would make sure that our revenues are just slightly above our expenditures on an annual basis, on a year-to-year basis, right? And we look at that pretty carefully. And when you start seeing the revenue start going down toward your expenses, then you're in trouble. So maintaining a structurally balanced budget means maintaining revenues that keep track with your increasing costs, and that's what we're asking for in this particular budget. The second point is that once you start eroding your core revenue base, right, which property tax represents, right, then you're starting to get onto a downward spiral that we really are trying very hard to avoid. It's going to be even harder next year if we do reduce it, to raise it above a revenue neutral rate. And it just permanently lowers our revenue streams in that core revenue. And we just want to make sure that stays along with the average that's happening, that we're experiencing as cost increases.
I'd just like to weigh in on this revenue neutral rate. You know, when, like you said, we had the work day or work night, whatever it was, and we presented the budget, and it didn't look good. At the time, it was going to be a 7% increase, and then things fell off. So it went down to where it is now. And I'm all for this. We have a new wastewater treatment plant we have to pay for. And we've increased the utilities by 3% for several years. I don't know how long we're going to do that. Is it for the next 30 years? Every year we're going to increase it 3%? Maybe so. But then I think it costs the city more money to operate. So we pass it on to the taxpayers. And that's business owners, and that's taxpayers, and business owners and taxpayers. So what do? They have to pass that extra cost on to their customers, the taxpayers. You know, and then I was looking in here, it says we have a possible 2.5% increase in our sales tax. And to me, I'm just a simple man, but when our sales tax goes up, that means it costs the people, say a hamburger, it costs the people that make the hamburger more money to buy the supplies to make the hamburger. And naturally, they gotta pass that cost on to the customer. That's an increase in taxes. So we have an increase in property tax, we have an increase in water rates, which I'm all for that. Sales tax, like I said, it's going up. We're doing a lot of good stuff with sales tax. That's another cost we're passing on to the taxpayers. Just like, I think John and DJ and Isaiah, they all mentioned this, that the ones that's hurting by these tax increases are the very bottom income levels in our town, because it all filters down to them, and they can't pass that increase on to anybody else. They just have to pay it, whether you're renting. I think Doc said 61% of the properties in Pittsburgh are rental properties. Well, those landlords are going to have to pass that increase on to their rental people. And like I said, it gets down to the low income people that can't pass that on. So you know what they do? They go to the grocery store, and just like Darren said, what do you get for $100? So their cost, they're going to have to decide what I need to spend my money on at the grocery store. Because I got this tax increase, I got that tax increase, sales tax are up. So, you know, the ones that's going to feel the most effect on it are the low end of the scale in Pittsburgh. And, you know, I had a number, and I talked to Darren several times on this, the utility increase. We were going to increase that by 15%. I know we've talked about it several times. I'm thinking, why do we have to do it one time? I said, why can't we do 7.5 now and 7.5 at the end? I also mentioned, why can't we do 5% for 3 years? And I'm glad you came up with, we're not going to increase that other than the 3%. That's a little bit that we're giving to the taxpayers. But, you know, I had a number in my mind on the mill levy, but listening to people today and seeing what they have to try to pay for, and I know it's costing us more money, and I'm all about giving our employees a raise and all about insurance, but every business that have employees, most of them have high insurance rates. So everybody's in the same boat. And like I said, it's all passed down from the business owners, the landlords, to the people at the low end, and they can't pass that on to anybody else. They gotta provide for their family, go to the grocery store, some of the stuff that, you know, we enjoy because we got the money to pay for, they can't. They have to get the staple, you know. And like Darren said, it's like that all over the country, but I just feel for the people in Pittsburgh, whether you're a young family trying to start out and buy a home, you know, automatically your sales tax is gonna probably eat you up when you're trying to make a house payment. So, you know, like I said, I had a number on the mill levy, but listening to people tonight, the people I work for, I'm at a point where I would vote not to increase the revenue neutral rate. That's where I'm at.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I second his, because I see it every day. And the people need something once in a while, and time is now.
I guess where I'm coming from, you know, I think it was the 5 of us in 2022 that did the salary survey. We really worked hard to invest in our employees. Under Darren's leadership, we're self-insured for health insurance, and that is no easy task. We've been able to keep the premium the same for 7 years. Commodities are going up, supply, and we've talked all about that, the increase in expenses. If we ignore that, my fear is that we may be able to get through next year, but then it's gonna start eating revenue that we've committed to our employees. And we purposely worked on that in order to recruit and retain employees. And we have employees that make on what you would consider the lower end. And we, in my opinion, as an employer and as a business, we need to be able to keep our investment in our staff. And that would be why I would consider exceeding the revenue neutral rate. Because once we don't, then say next year, the evaluation is low, I mean, we'll never catch up. We'll never catch up.
I think you know, when I first got on the commission, we needed to do something with our mill levy. You know, we proposed that we raise it 5 mil. And I wasn't in favor of that. You know, I know how people have to pay for things. I had some other commissioners on here, and I won't mention his name, a very smart man. He said that he would go along with the 3%, 3 mil increase, as long as we took that off the next year. And I sold that to people. I said, you know, I don't like to see anything, but it's not 5, it's 3, and we're gonna take it off next year. You know what happened? When we talked about it in a workday, that never came off. That 3 mil stayed on. And I was told by another commissioner that service will suffer if we took that 3 mil off. And I worked at the fire department a few years before that. We had minimum staffing levels. And because of the overtime that was eating up the budget, we lowered that minimum staffing level to make it work out. So I asked the fire chief at the time, I said, you know, with the lower staffing levels, has services suffered? And he said no. And I know we have not a full fire department. I know we have not a full police department. I don't know about the other departments. They're working, hard-working people. Are they full up? I don't know. There is not one department that service has suffered, even though they're short-handed. They do the job. So, you know, if we have to, I think you go to the people and say, hey, you know, we're gonna stay at revenue neutral rate, but if something comes up, we're gonna might have to raise the mill levy. And I think they would understand. Matter of fact, I think they went, before we went to revenue neutral, and Darren, you could, I don't know all the details, but there was something to do with consumer price index. If the consumer price index went up or was something, that we could put that, if we had to raise a mill levy, we could put that to the citizens and let them vote on that.
A lot of people confuse the tax lid with the revenue neutral rate. They're not the same thing. The tax lid was basically a lid that had so many exemptions that it didn't cap anything. And then it was replaced with the revenue neutral rate, which the biggest intent of that was just to make everybody aware of what's going on. But yeah, I would caution you, a 3.8 drop in the mills would be, as somebody told me last week and I was talking about it, you can't, I witnessed this in 2012, you can't go back and raise the mill rate during a bad economy, during a recession. So at some point, you have to take what you can get when it's good, because when it's bad, you're not going to be able to do it. So I don't recall the 3 mil increase being for 1 year, but if that's how you remember it, that's a discussion you had. But keeping the mill rate constant is best practice, and living off the growth. If there's no growth next year, you won't, that's when you don't come back in and say, well, we need 2 mills. You're just like, hey, there's no assessed valuation. Maybe things are getting cheaper out there. Maybe inflation's dying off. I don't know. But taking a hammer to the mill rate in that magnitude will be, I think there has been service level changes in what the staff does from year to year in the last 14 years. And I'm glad you don't notice it, because that means we're doing our job. But yeah, it's.
But we've talked a lot this last year about, police and fire. And that was one of the reasons we looked at the salary schedule, was to be able to recruit and retain. I would just really hate to see us.
Well, Dawn, just to follow up with that, that's why we.
Hey Chuck, would you speak into the microphone?
Oh.
It's hard to hear.
Oh. So you just said that we looked at the salary to retain our police and fire. How's that worked out for us?
Our firefighter, I don't know that there's more than 1 or 2 vacancies in fire. Police across the state and across the country has vacancies, but the salary range that we have is retaining the police officers we have. So I think it's working well. And I will never, we don't have an employee that's not underpaid. We work our employees very hard,
Yeah,
and they
I
all
agree.
know that. And
I
I think
agree.
that any dollar I can get fighting for them, I'm going to get to.
Did you have something?
Well, we're required as a city to provide services, certain required services by statute, obviously police, fire, utilities, streets, and all of those costs go up. Street costs go up. Yes, we have the fortune of having a sales tax to help offset that a little bit, to make up gaps where the property tax isn't enough revenue to pave the streets that we are able to pave. I hear people say all the time, and I think it's wonderful that they feel this way. Citizens, not just in our community, but other communities, make the comment that police and fire are underpaid. You know, we wouldn't do the job that you do for what you guys get. That said, anytime that there's an increase, a very generous increase in the city's case, in a comprehensive pay study, there's a ripple effect with that. I mean, it costs not just one time, but it costs every year that we do that. So we're committing ourselves down the road, as a community, as a city, not just as a commission, but we're doing that, as representatives of the community to, you know, we heard you say they're not paid enough, we're not retaining them. And I'm not putting this all on that, but I mean, that is just one example of where this money goes, and why we have to have increases. Our costs never go down, just like each one of us citizens from Pittsburgh, none of our costs go down. And yes, we've all agreed, we're all dealing with this. Nobody's immune from this. The costs go up, and yes, the underserved and the underpaid are paying, are having a more difficult time of it. And we understand that and we hear that, but we also have to run a city, and unfortunately, that's, you know, we have to. I posed the question to Isaiah earlier, same thing here. Where do we get the money? Where does it come from if we don't capture the revenue neutral rate, if we don't capture the growth? I mean, where does that come from? What, you know, we've had this, you know, in our laps since May. You know, the proposal was proposed to us in July. And no one's come up with anything of where we can cut this. I mean, we've all had ample time to look at it, but where do we go from there? I mean, and here we are tonight, faced with this difficult decision with really no answer on what we're gonna cut out. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents.
Pay it through. All right, well, I think. Dun, 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 dun. Anybody want to
Any other
make?
discussion?
Any discussion? Any other discussion? No? There's.
Well, as difficult as it is, I will move to raise, to capture the growth, and increase the revenue neutral, go above the revenue neutral rate.
Second.
It's been moved by Stu, seconded by Ron. All those in favor say aye. Actually, roll call vote. It's a roll call vote.
Brooks? I'm not against the employees, but no.
Height,
Yes.
McNay,
Yes.
Munsell,
Yeah, I'm, echo Cheryl, I'm not against the employees getting a raise. And before Pittsburgh United for Health and Safety comes after me, because I voted against them, supposedly I voted against employees' raises, I did not. I think they should get a raise, but I will vote no on exceeding the revenue neutral rate, just by listening to the citizens.
Sigley,
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, moving on. So item B, proposed 2026 budget. Thank you, everyone, by the way. That was important. Proposed 2026 budget, the city of Pittsburgh had advertised for a public hearing to be held on September 9th, 2025 at the city commission meeting commencing at 5:30 PM in the city commission room located in the Law Enforcement Center, 201 North Pine, for the purpose of hearing and answering questions related to the proposed 2026 budget. Following the public hearing, approve or disapprove the 2026 budget. Does anyone want to speak to that from staff, or?
We'll answer questions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing if anyone wants to come forward related to the 2026 budget.
30 seconds, I promise.
Oh, can I time you?
Roger Lomsheck, 1147 South 220th Street. Question is, the budget that's been on the website, the one that's being considered, or have there been changes made?
The document or there's issues with the document. The certification pages that are the ones the commission adopts are accurate. So
Okay,
the mill rate, the amount of tax that it generates. But the changes we made at the last minute to the 15% down to 3 and the figuring out what the assessed valuation was supposed to be. Changed some of the pages, but the policy document is the same.
The
departments.
expenditure lines are the same essentially? Or there
The expenditure
changes to that?
lines are, have shifted within like a budget, but the overall expenditure lines are accurate, yeah.
Okay.
The personnel statement is accurate. I did have somebody point out a couple of, there's always a typo in the budget and, you know,
Yeah,
but the policy document and the property tax and all those things. are
Overall
accurate.
totals are still staying unchanged. Okay, that was the only question I had. Thank you.
Good question.
Thanks, Roger.
Christy Bittner, 1508 Bittner Court. Good evening. I come before this governing body with real concerns of this 2026 budget presented, which you will be asked to approve this evening. I requested a printed copy of the budget book to review. When I looked at the 26 budget online to compare what I had, they were quite different numbers. An example is that for total expenditures for 2026 online, I found 4 inconsistent sums for expenditures on pages 33, 53, 101, and 119. The printed copy I received seems to be a returned copy from the July 22nd meeting where the governing body was given a second edition of the 2026 budget. It was disappointing that I would not have a correct copy and the first copies were not shredded to avoid such mistakes. Moving to the budget summary, the revenues on page 21 are a duplicate on page 22 and the beginning of the expenses page is missing. Necessary information such as position summaries, pension costs, cost of living and merit raises, and health insurance costs are gone. In the resource section, the graphs do not have dollar amounts normally shown, just percentages. The franchise tax, municipal court fines, and gaming revenue have been left out this year. In the property tax graph on page 30, the mill levy is not the same for 2026 as on page 21 or on page 119 of the notice of budget hearing. The 2025 mill levy is different than on the notice of budget hearing. In the expenditure section, the annual expenditure is listed at $48,407,745. In the 5-year financial plan, it is listed at $48,708,989. That's $301,244 difference. The total 2026 expenditures by fund that do not match the graph numbers that are on page 33 that come to $74,619,580. That is a $106,555 difference. Again, no dollar amounts listed in the 2026 allocation by purpose. In the annual debt service table, the numbers listed for the 2025 through 2033 are quite different than the 2026 debt service table and do not extend out to 2037. The schedule of positions do not add up. In the budget summary of the copy I have, page 22 shows 306 full-time positions. That's an increase of 4.8 positions from 2024, it states. The adopted positions in 2024 were 297.9. In 2025, it became 302.9. And in 2026, it became 303.6. So with an increase of 4.8 positions for 2026, the total could be 302.7 to 308.4, depending which number is chosen. On page 53, the last item listed is personnel. The actual 2024 column states 303.6 employees. With a 4.8 position increase, it would be 308.4. The adopted positions for 2025 were to 302.9, and 2026 shows it's now 306.8. The adopted positions for 2026 are 306.8. Darren and Jay last year said that the 2 pages to compare are page 53 of all departments and the notice of budget hearing, which is a state certificate that represents how the funds are spent. Many of the numbers do not match with the notice of budget hearing page. The valuation stated on page 21 states the valuation used to support the 2026 budget is $177,213,786. Yet the valuation used on page 119 of the notice of budget hearing is $183,702,295. There is a $2,090,632 difference between the stated total expenditures for 2026 than what is listed on the notice of budget hearing page. There are numbers that should be examined more closely before moving forward. As time does not permit me to be very specific on all examples, I do not believe this budget should be approved as written with the conflicting facts as stated. Thank you.
Christie. Jay and/or Marjorie, do you want to talk about the purpose of the budget book versus the forms that we're certifying?
Yeah, sorry, get rid of this. The budget document that we prepare and submit to you in a detailed form is what we call a program budget. We refer to it as a program budget. What that is attempting to do is to talk about the more details of the policies that are implied in the overall budget that you're going to be asked to adopt. You're going to be asked to sign off on the state budget forms. That is the official budget of the city.
Is there any way you can bring those up?
I don't have them on this machine.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But those documents are are the board you're going to be asked to sign tonight, right? The budget we provide you, the submitted budget, is really is something we provide to you to try to give a little bit more explanation about what's happening in the budget, in the operations of the city, right? The way that particular document is assembled, all right, is through a series of connected and linked spreadsheets, right? The connected and linked spreadsheets sometimes miss links, and so some of the totals don't match up. But the policies, the totals that you're looking at are indeed ones that you're going to be approving in the budget in the state budget form tonight.
So, assuming that the budget is approved tonight, then that book, that document will be updated with everything that we have talked about, so that at some point it would reflect what we've approved tonight?
Yes.
Margie, can you come up for a second?
Yeah.
So Margie,
These aren't the real numbers.
I know everybody's sick of hearing from me and Jay. Margie puts the book together for us, unfortunately for her, because she's under contract with us and nobody else is there. A couple of the pages that were, the page 21 being repeated twice is because one of our employees who's not in this room agreed, when we agreed the day the budget was supposed to be submitted, that we probably should try to at least put out a budget that reflects what we changed at the end. But can you talk a little bit about
Sure.
what that process is?
Sure.
And I apologize.
Sure.
It's a book, and
Sure.
you say it better than we do, but
Oh, I don't know about that.
there's
We'll see.
there's a lot going on in there.
Right, so the budget book, like Jay mentioned, is the method that the city of Pittsburgh is using to publish that book is currently through a series of spreadsheets that are linked together. In preparation for the discussion around the rate, the property tax levy, that is really the base of where we start. In addition to any changes in assumptions of sales tax, of which there were none. I want to be really clear, I've heard a couple of times a sales tax increase. There actually was not a sales tax increase in this budget. There was a projected increase in retail sales in the city of Pittsburgh, but the actual rate of sales tax did not change in this budget. But they're based on the receipts so far this year, there is an estimated increase in actual retail sales in the city of Pittsburgh that is reflected in that 2026 budget. So those revenue bases all build that budget in a very granular level that starts at a very line item detail inside these Excel spreadsheets. When the decision was made to drop that wastewater rate, the sewer rate down, that decision was made the day of the actual commission meeting when I was on site in Pittsburgh. And that day of the meeting, when we dropped that rate down, all of those spreadsheets had to be updated that day. We talked about that. We talked about the risk of doing that last minute change and what that could possibly mean. And that is what you're looking at in that budget book. So the budget book does have errors in it that have since been corrected. Jay and I and Darren talked about that. All those corrections have already been made. And we talked about republishing a book. And they said, let's just wait. We have some very big policy decisions for this commission to consider in terms of property taxes, in terms of utility rates, in terms of personnel. Presuming the commission makes decisions on all of those very large items, then we will republish a book that has all of those discrepancies corrected. And then the long-term goal being the implementation of a new financial management system that will generate this budget, so this budget is not linked by a series of spreadsheets, and we don't have these errors that happen because there are plugged numbers randomly inside spreadsheets, or because there are lines that are added in the detail that then cause the summary pages to no longer be linked to the right totals in the detail. All of those items accumulated in this budget. Unfortunately, the city of Pittsburgh has experienced a number of different finance directors that have touched these spreadsheets over the course of a number of years. With that, a number of things have changed in the formulas over the years. Me being the most recent person to touch the spreadsheet, didn't know where all of the gremlins were hidden. And when I started updating these spreadsheets, some of these discrepancies have occurred. I can assure you I have no dog in this fight, and none of it was certainly malicious at all. All of those items have since been corrected, but like I said, we made the collective decision to hold on publishing yet another book until the commissioners had an opportunity to weigh the public input and make some very big policy decisions. If the decision on the property tax rate, for example, would have changed, we would be redoing the whole book anyway. If the decision on rate changes in the utilities would have changed, we would be redoing the whole book anyway. So we elected to, and we thought it would be better for the commission, and perhaps we were in error when we thought that. We thought it would be better for the commission if we did not publish yet another book until some of these policy decisions were discussed.
Well, for me, I think you were in error, because we've operated off this book with the discrepancies that we didn't know was in here, until Christie brought them up, I guess.
So
But
those
now
discrepancies.
You're gonna assure us, if we vote to approve this with all the errors, you're gonna have another book that's corrected, so we're not.
Well, we're not approving the book.
You're not approving a book.
Correct.
Okay, the part of the book, the last 2 pages, is exactly what was submitted and is accurate. The rest of the book is a narrative, and it's pulled together for the purpose of showing somebody the Public Works Department and that they have so many employees, and giving you an idea of what they had 3 years ago, the current year, and next year. If we would have included a 15% raise in the wastewater utilities and published that book, knowing that we had no intent of putting that in there, that would have been a mistake. That is what's reflected. To Margie's point, the policies in that book are accurate. We're not required to publish a book. We do it as a courtesy, and this year we're doing it with somebody that actually knows how to do it, because I know, as much as I like to take the blame for what's going on, I don't make the book. Other people make the book. I didn't invent the book. Somebody else made it, and we pass it on. Margie's the one that should get the slap on the back and say, attaboy. That's like, there are plugged numbers in here. It's supposed to be a spreadsheet where you put in the revenues and it populates the book. But I've got the book. I called her a week after you guys took the July 8th meeting and said, I just went through the book and I've had 40 changes. And I got a call today from Ms. Bittner, who went through most of these, and I had those changes as well. We know the book's wrong, but the book's irrelevant. What's relevant are the taxes and the rate of property tax that you were setting, and it's the same thing that you were considering July 8th, and it's the same thing you were considering in May. And I apologize for the book, and I apologize to Margie for having to explain it, but I thank heavens that she's here, and she has enough, she knows what's going on, that she can fix it, and the financial management system will make all of this a moot point. But we haven't had the luxury of that ever, and we're still implementing that. But yeah, the book's a mess, but it's right. I mean, is every number right? No, but the FTE line, halfway up the page, it's right, but when somebody subtotaled it into categories, they dropped out some numbers. But the intent of the book is to paint a picture. It's never right. It's probably going to be right one day in May, January 1st, and then it's never going to be right again anyway. But I do apologize, and I think Margie, but it's a book. It's a courtesy, and it should be better, and it will be. But
So, Jay,
it's not relevant.
Is it possible to take, turn the Elmo on and show the last 2 pages as to what we're voting? And I apologize. We're still in the hearing. So if there's anyone else that would like to come forward. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll try and, I don't want to take more of everyone's evening.
Probably just slap them on that.
Jay, several people have the book.
Jay,
Can
you want
just-
the book?
Yeah, maybe the vote.
So that everyone can see exactly what we would be voting on.
It's upside
What
down.
page are, at the end?
Just walk us through it if you could. Thank you, Audrey.
Alrighty. So from, I don't know if I read this in. I apologize that you're gonna be staring at my back.
That's all right. Maybe, Chuck, do you have your book?
Yeah, you
You
need
can
it?
look
Do you
at,
mind if I borrow yours? So I don't have to-
What do you want, the last two pages, the whole book?
no, the.
Oh,
Just
this.
the cover sheet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So for the city of Pittsburgh, the statutory requirement for the budget is this form that you can see here and that is in your budget book. It is on page 120. This is the actual budget that the commission will be requested to approve so that it can be submitted to the state. This is the same budget that will be managed in the budget book, so it foots to this, as well as entered into the financial management system for all the financial reporting that you will see in all of 2026. And in this budget, the commission would be approving general fund expenditures, and Darren spoke to that earlier on what that is and includes, of a total of 29.5 million and some change, with a tax rate, I'm sorry, that's a 2024 number, I'm gonna read over here, the 2026 proposed budget for the general fund is 31.706370. And that is at the proposed rate of 36.951. For debt service, the property tax the budget for that property tax and debt service is 4.952770 million in expenditures, and the levy rate of 7.904 for debt service. For library, the proposed expenditures of 1.641926, with a proposed rate of 5.999. Additionally, there are a number of special purpose funds that have expenditures that the commission would be approving as well, including the special highway fund, with budgeted expenditures of 8.796781 million. The special drug and alcohol of 289,494. The special parks and recreation, 153,725. The water and wastewater utility of 13.508510 million. The stormwater utility of 1.484242. The sanitation utility of 729,411. The Section 8 programs consolidated at 2.185891. The economic development program, 7.186382. And that is what the commission is being asked to approve, are just those numbers independently. The commission is not asked to approve the individual line item details that are shown in the book for discussion purposes. They're asked to approve this level from a statutory perspective.
And the numbers that are shown is that in detail in the book, in the other parts of the book, are not do not misrepresent what you're passing tonight.
Correct.
This will drive the book.
Correct.
Always does.
Yeah.
It does, correct.
Just say it again, it'll drive the book?
Well, what we approve tonight, we will take and update all the numbers in the book.
But you can understand the confusion, though.
Oh, imagine Margie's the one that had to put the book together. She's the one that came
Sure.
back and said, we're going to make all these changes, but that, if you recall, she was still making changes when the meeting started.
Right.
That's how, but it didn't seem
And
right
maybe-
to adopt, to have the submitted budget be something that we knew was going to change the next day.
And maybe there just needs to be an explanation the next time we do a book, not necessarily in January, but next budget year, that
Well, we
it's a
need-
working document.
We need a system that'll put the book together. I mean, it's,
And these
when I got here,
numbers-
there was no book,
These
just to be
numbers
clear.
as
We didn't
a
adopt a
result
book.
of exceeding the net, revenue neutral rate, right?
Yes.
These numbers support that, correct? So the rate that's in here, Commissioner, are the numbers that calculate out to the rate that is being proposed,
So if I
correct?
voted not to exceed that, then I can't vote for a budget that exceeds that.
That's the dilemma you have, Chuck, yes.
Do what now?
That's the dilemma you would have, yes.
Well, I mean, it's not a dilemma, I just want to.
No, you could still, I mean, the vote to exceed the revenue neutral rate is over. You can vote for the budget if you want. Is that what you're asking?
I mean.
You're not compelled to vote no for the
I mean,
rest of your.
It was a positive vote. I mean, we support, regardless if it's a 5-0 or what, when a vote is taken, we support the commission's majority.
Yeah.
So, there, I mean, that's the end of my sentence, I guess. Any other questions for our team?
Thanks, Margie.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, you do? Yeah.
Jay, can I have my book back? Will you sign it? You autograph it?
Okay, the state certificate, the notice of hearing budget hearing. It says the total expenditures are $72,635,503. But you go to page 53, and it says the adopted 2026 expenditures are going to be $74,726,135. How can you not have it be $74,726,135 on the state certificate if that's what we're going to be spending? And there's only three numbers. I think it's a stormwater, property and sanitation, Section 8 housing are the only ones on this certificate that are the same as on page 53. The rest of them don't match. And then you go to 2024, you're saying, these are the actual dollars we spent in 2024. On page 53, there's only 4 of those that match page 53. And the property and sanitation, it showed there was $544 and $544,362 were left off of that. So actually, that's over 54.4 million that we spent in 2024. And the resources were 49.9. So, and even in 2025, we have 6 of them match, the rest of them don't on the certificate. So I'm saying there are some problems. How can you vote for something that the numbers aren't matching up, that you say, this is what we're going to spend? I think if it's 74 million, then it need to be 74 million on the certificate, not 72 million. And in the first book you had, it was 73 million.
So Christy, you and I have been in this game a lot. Whatever we approve on this is what we spend.
Well, I understand, but if you plan on spending 74 million, shouldn't you have 74 million on there and not 72 million?
No, we're gonna spend 72 million,
Yeah.
not 73,
but
not 74.
All your other documents that you're showing how we're spending the money, the percentages and the numbers come to 74 million. So now you're gonna take 2 million out of your budget? Is that what you're saying you're gonna do tonight?
What we're saying is that this is the.
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay, Marjorie.
She's not going to listen to it. Yeah.
Do you want us to spend 74 million?
So this is what I was talking about in the spreadsheet errors, as the sanitation fund was added into the detailed budget. That was new in 2024. When that section was added into the detail, these summary pages that are being referenced where it has totals in it, are not pulling the correct totals onto the summary page. The detail pages are accurate, the summary pages are not, because they're pulling the wrong formulas and the rows off of the detail pages. The 72 million, the budget on the budget certificate, that is what is in the detailed budget. The summary pages that were published and need to be replaced that match this, we have those versions available. Today, we did not print those versions. We talked about it, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, republishing it, changing the document that was online, and elected not to do that until some of these other bigger tax decisions were made. But we have already corrected those summary pages so that they all foot and tie out to this. There is no budget that's created to spend $74 million. There is spreadsheet errors that have been corrected because they pulled the wrong line items. This is the detailed budget that the commission is being asked to approve. This is what all of the summary schedules have been corrected to reflect and remove those discrepancies that were driven by Excel formula errors. There is no other budget that has a different number in it.
This document on the screen, 72 million?
That's it. Correct.
Perfect.
And I know it feels like, well, I'll just speak for myself. It feels like to this audience that, we're not digging into the detail. But I think we all meet with Darren regularly and talk about these things. So we're not coming to this meeting tonight and going, oh my goodness, never seen those numbers. Well, yeah, we have, and we've talked about it. We've talked about an open meeting, we talked about Workday, and some of us have talked about it individually at our meetings.
I mean, it's a heck of an ordeal to put the budget together. It was hard enough to create one when we had, Jamie created it, Jamie knew it went into it. 3 finance directors later, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but Margie, I mean, I don't know how many of the numbers, the thing we adopt every year is the budget certificate for a reason. The book is a courtesy, and I don't say that like the book doesn't matter, but the book is simply a reflection because, as you have already found out, it can those errors didn't happen this month. Some of those errors were done by whoever put the book together 3 years ago. My challenge, my job from you is to make sure that we do the budget certificate, it gets to the state, and we spend the tax money we have. I wish the book was perfect. I worked in Kansas City for 18 years. The book was never perfect there. We tried and tried. I think having a system create the book rather than a couple of people helped with the graphs this year. I was really proud of the community profile. Last year, they beat it to death. We had, some folks down in Housing Community Development worked on that. But to get caught up in, we've said it 3 or 4 times today, the budget certificate is the official budget of the city. The book is an attempt to reflect that by program, and obviously, as Margie pointed out, and these are all the little notes I made the week after we submitted it to you, and I called Margie and said, we got a lot of cleaning up to do in the book, and they were pointed out again today, but issuing a new book during the budget review process, none of these changes are material or policy related. They're just, a number shows up here and it was supposed to show up here and it moved around, usually within the same department.
Any other questions on this topic? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in,
Before I vote,
okay,
further approve or disapprove,
right.
I'm just a man of principle. I didn't vote to exceed the net revenue neutral rate. This budget is based on exceeding the revenue neutral rate, so therefore I can't vote for this budget.
I'm going to go ahead and call for a roll call vote on the budget.
Do you need to close the public hearing?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Brooks?
No.
Height?
Yes.
McNeigh?
Yes,
Mansell?
No.
Sigley?
Yes.
motion carries. We have a budget. So thank you, everyone, for your.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any non-agenda reports and requests? I do
No.
want to, none from you. I do want to, we have the groundbreaking for the KBI training center. Stu was there. I think Ron was there. Very impressive. The KBI does it upright. Lots of dignitaries, and it's going to be a phenomenal facility. So, okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. I second it.
Moved by Doc, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And thank you everyone for being here this evening.
We gotta go over there.